This might be a tricky topic. Easy enough for me to say for this group. Ryan is staring off in the distance, wondering about what I'm going to ask. How can this Georgia team get better in 23? Ryan, we'll go straight to you. Oh boy.
I well, I think they're going to pass downfield a little bit more. Not that they didn't. A different style of running backs, right? The personnel at the core is different because you're going to have Carson Beck and Kendall Milton, Dejan Edwards is different. Like Kenny McIntosh, they're not going to have this big receiving threat at running back. The way that they utilized Kenny McIntosh was different. So I think you will see a little bit more of kind of a ground and pound style offense when they are running the ball with a combination of going downfield more, just because Carson Beck does have more arm talent than Stetson Bennett. I think that part of their game will improve for sure, the downfield passing.
One thing, Matt, that we talked in another video about Mike Bobo's style. I could see some screens coming back. Well, he loved a screen, that's for sure. But other than that, how can Georgia get better, so to speak, as a team? I will ask you a leading question. You know, they didn't seem to get a lot of turnovers, although in the final game of the season they had quite a few with Javon Bullard. Is that one thing that they could get better on? What do you make of where Georgia can get better in 23?
Well, I think the turnover ratio is something that I think they'd like to be a lot better. I mean, for a while, most of that regular season, it was around that same type of area, 1-1, 2-2, whatever it was. But I look at the position groups and I'm thinking which one has the potential to be better than it was last year. And I think the linebacking core is because they didn't really lose anyone. It's hard to be better this year on the defensive line without Jalen Carter. It's hard to be better in the secondary without guys like Chris Smith and Keely Ringo. The offensive line, could that be a position group where they get better, even though you're losing Broderick Jones at left tackle? At wide receiver, you lost a couple of guys, including A.D. Mitchell, but you got a couple in the transfer portal, and you still have Lad McConkey, Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, and a lot of younger guys. So maybe that's a position group that's better last year. Tight end, it's hard to say they'll be better there without Darnell Washington, although I do think Oscar Delp is going to have a bigger impact next year, and they've got two really impressive freshmen tight ends as well. So at running back, you got to replace a guy like Kenny McIntosh, who caught 40 plus passes last year. Hard to see that position group being better. So I think at the end of the day, Smile Munden, Jamon Dumas-Johnson, Jalen Walker, those guys could be, very, very good, and that be the position group that could be one of the best in the country.
Yeah, they were not bad. They weren't great though. They were kind of right in the middle of the pack in terms of turnovers gained. They only had 19 of them a year ago, and of course Javon had 3 and 1 at the final game of the season. So they're slightly over 1 a game. They only turned it over 11 times, if I'm not mistaken. No fumbles were 11. They had more turnovers, and they had 18 total. So I've seen worse in the world. That would be where I guess I would start, Ryan. When you can get turnovers, that was one thing. The SC was really, 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 really good at getting turnovers. They got 22 turnovers a season ago. But just getting turnovers alone does not necessarily mean that you're going to be a really good team. For instance, the quasi top 10 here, Ryan: Southern Cal, Duke, Illinois, who was a pretty good defense, East Carolina, Ohio, Kansas State was a pretty good team, Middle Tennessee, Tennessee, Penn State, San Jose State, and Georgia Tech were roughly the top 10 teams in gaining 11 more than they lost. Those are not great teams. So I don't know that you got to be better at turnover margin. What do you think that they have to be better at a year from now?
I think getting pressure to the quarterback. That's something
Okay.
that took them a while to get better at as the season went on. I don't think that we will see it take as long to develop this time around. Guys like Michael Williams, Bear Alexander that really came on towards the end of the year, they're going to have a whole nother spring. Their freshman year, they just played in and won a national championship. I think I don't think the secondary is going to be better, but I think there's an argument to be made that the front seven is going to be better than it was last year, even if you are losing Jalen Carter.
Maybe.
I mean, I think that it's the best linebacker room in the country. I don't know if that's close. I mean, Smile London and Jamon Dumas-Johnson, and then you sprinkle in younger players like Jalen Walker. But
No
As
one's
far as the
talking about
turnovers
Chaz
go,
Chambliss. He was a starter the last 5 of the games of the season or whatever it was.
well, that's more just edge rusher. I'm talking about linebackers, more
All right.
traditional linebackers. But as far as the turnovers go, that's Kirby was asked about that later in the season. I can't remember exactly when, and he said that his teams at Georgia have never been amazing in the turnover
No.
margin, and they've won games where they've lost the turnover battle. The Missouri's one of them. That was abnormal. I think it was 2-0 the turnover margin.
I don't have my laptop with me, which has all of that data. But
I think it was 2-0 that night.
once you get to -2 in a game, Matt, you start getting into a little bit of trouble. I would say make sure you're grabbing this sort of information. We've got our newsletter down below. Make sure you're signing up for that so you don't miss out on any of these critical takes or articles. Georgia had 35 sacks a season ago, which is about 2 a game, which, if you listen, a sack should end a drive. Here's the math. Here's how it works. If you have about 12 possessions a game, you have 2 sacks a game, that basically ends 2 drives. If you have 2 turnovers a game that you're getting, which Georgia did not, then that takes away another 2 drives. So then the other guys are trying to score, the most that they can score with 8 drives is, Matt, 7 times 8 quickly?
What, 56?
Yeah, they can't.
Let's
They can
go,
only.
Matt.
Yeah.
Oh. Kennesaw State, baby.
Oh,
Let's
yes,
go.
sir.
Let's go.
Wow, we're really going hard. You can quote only score 56. Most of the time, you only score about half of your possessions, generally speaking. So, you're whittling it down. The more mistakes you make, the more sacks there are, and stuff like that. Offensively for Georgia, um, we've talked about a little bit about the running backs. Are these receivers? I mean, we don't really know a status yet with Robert Thomas. I'm assuming he's going to be there in the fall. I don't know, but I would assume he will. Where is Georgia in this passing game from the receiver standpoint?
I think at the end of the day, it still needs to go through Brock Bowers, but Ladd McConkey is as reliable as it gets. He might be a top 10 returning wide receiver in college football this year, and he can beat you vertically. He can beat you in the screen game. He gets open on his own. He's got quick feet and create separation, and that's something that you definitely need, especially on third down. So he's a guy who can make a lot of plays. Marcus Rosemy-Jack saying good things happen when that guy is involved, and we've seen him go up and make some big-time catches either on the sideline or when Tennessee was in town, that snag for that touchdown right, in front of the goalpost, he can play. And, guys like Denylon Morris and Jackson Meeks are just waiting for their turn. We saw some Dylan Bell action last year as a true freshman. He's a guy who might, see more of an opportunity next year. So the weapons are there. And, Mike Bobo definitely had some wide receivers, back in the day too. So he knows how to get his playmakers the ball. But at the end of the day, Brock Bowers is last year. If you want to try to go get a three-peat, you make sure he gets the ball as much as possible this year, in my opinion. But there's still a lot of reliable weapons and young guys who are, waiting to emerge. It's go time for a lot of those younger receivers, in my opinion.
All right. What happens if the quarterback is not Beck? Just like, let's say he gets beat out, all right, Ryan, and one of the other 2 guys takes over, and then I'll go to Matt with that. How does that change things?
Well, I think it actually changed things less because those 2 guys are, if it's Brock or Gunner, I mean, they just move around better than Beck. I don't think that Beck has poor mobility, but he, in that quarterback room last year, he was clearly the least mobile guy of the 3, right? I mean, Stetson, Gunner, and Brock can all really move around. So I think that if it's not Carson, you'll actually see less changes or fewer changes. Sorry.
Yes, because you can count them, Matt.
Nice. It's just attacking the run game to help the young quarterbacks out a little bit, make it easier for them. But again, they're all talented, so you have to continue to let them do their thing. But they're not brand new. They're not just walking in there for the first time. This is Brock's 3rd year. Of course, it'll be under a different coordinator, but just playing college football and practicing with these guys. At some point, that chemistry will be there, might be there for him in year 3 or Gunner in year 2. So it's not like you're throwing a fresh guy in there, although they're inexperienced. But obviously, I think, having the experience, Carson Beck, win the job outright and continue to play better and better is ideal. I think that's what's going to happen. But You know, Brock is, you know, I'm sure he's itching to play. I know Gunner's itching to play. I think they'll be ready if they need to be.
I think the thing that is the most sort of quote comfortable about this season is that Georgia, in my opinion, gets to walk its way to the deep end of the pool. They open with two gimme games with Tennessee, Martin, and Ball State. The game against South Carolina will be enough of a test to where it will get their attention. They play UAB, and then they go to Auburn, a team that has a new head coach. Auburn could be good. We'll see. I'm skeptical that they'll beat Georgia. And by 5 games into the season, you will sort of know where you're at with a lot of things. They've got a physical Kentucky after that before they go to Nashville and then Jacksonville. This Georgia team will, I mean, I think it sets up pretty well for them, but I do think some of the things that we touched on will be ideal to improve on, but we don't know if they will, and we'll just have to monitor as we go.